Good morning. My name is Garrett Sheehan, and welcome to the Big Connect presented by Comcast Business. Day 2. We'll get started in just a moment. And good morning, everyone, and welcome again to the Big Connect presented by Comcast Business. This year, a 4-day virtual business-to-business expo. We appreciate you joining us today. We have another great lineup of speakers. Yesterday was a great day as well. And we want to make sure you take advantage of all of the opportunities on the Whova app. You can go on there, connect with other attendees. Please visit the exhibitors. You can interact with our speakers as well. So lots of opportunities. If you're having any troubles with it, please reach out to us. We can troubleshoot that, but very easy to use once you start navigating around. So please take advantage of using our conference app. I want to thank all of our investors here in the chamber who have allowed us to put on not only this event, but so many other programs over the last several months, and also all of our principal investors. We really could not do it without the support of our businesses helping us through this difficult time. And so we appreciate your support. And that's allowed us to help so many other small businesses that are out there. Today, we have a great lineup again, as I mentioned, our sponsors, Comcast Business, Southern Connecticut State University, who will be presenting our first speaker, our keynote speaker for the morning, Toby, and then KeyBank, who is presenting our Women's Power Panel, also Latinas and Power Corporation, the HR Source, La Voz Hispana, and WTNH News 8. Our media sponsors as well, they've helped get the word out to everyone about the Big Connect going on this year, going on virtually for 4 days. Now, as we've been telling you, we do have an opportunity to win a prize package at Foxwoods Resort Casino. Now, to be able to get the prize, there's a few steps, and it's not that difficult, but what you have to do is go to one of our vendor booths, and you have to do all 3 of these things here: claim a deal, post a comment, and like a booth. And every time you do that at one of our exhibitors, that's going to enter you into the grand prize drawing for the Foxwoods Resort Casino room giveaway, dinner, and free passes to the race karting. So go around. It's something you should be doing anyways. Go visit the booths. But if you do those 3 pieces, again, claim a deal or offering, post a comment, and like a booth, you will then be entered. And so you can do that many times. Go to all of our booths and take advantage of that. I also want to mention, we do have the Zoom Lounge networking room presented by the Energy Efficiency Programs at Southern Connecticut Gas and UI. That's a place where you can network. Also, some of our speakers are shifting over there after they finish talking. And so you can follow them over to continue the conversation, talk to them briefly at the end of their speaking program. But we also have dedicated networking time that will be going on over there in the Zoom Lounge networking room. So it's 8:50, and at 8:50 each morning, we are doing Start with Art. And this morning, we want to introduce you to Christian Sands, a Grammy-nominated jazz pianist, and his jazz album, Be Water. Let's start with art.
I am Christian Sands, and today I'm talking about my love for New Haven, Connecticut. It's such a special place. It was a great place to grow up in the 90s. Creatively, there were so many things going on, from the Arts and Ideas Fest to the New Haven Jazz Festival, the Gospel Festivals, the Duke Ellington series presented by Willie Ruff at Yale. That was actually the first time I ever saw a jazz concert. I believe was Clark Terry and Frank West at Sprague Hall. It was the first place I ever performed, was Sprague Hall. New Haven is just a special place. It's an amazing, amazing place. I first learned how to hear music and resonate with it at church, at Varick AME Zion Church. And I was a part of the choir. I was a part of the youth programs there. My mother was a part of the youth programs there. She was helping direct and just take care of the kids. And the community of New Haven was such a special thing that I still continue to bring with me wherever I go. New Haven's my backbone. You know, New Haven's the place where I learned how to do what I do. You know, going to neighborhood music school, I think from age 4 to 18, studying with different teachers, Rex Cadwallader, learning and playing with the musicians there, Jeff Fuller, Tony Lambardozzi, Ed Zircone, Jesse Hameen II. You know, there's so many musicians there that have helped me along this way, not only just in the classroom, but also performing too. I mean, the first gigs I had was performing with them. You know, the first time I ever played on stage was with Jeff Fuller, you know, doing a Harold Arlen tribute at Sprague Hall. You know, New Haven's a special place. It's an amazing place, full of art, full of love, full of family. My father's from there. His father's from there. You know, so New Haven's in my blood.
And we have more to come from Christian. Just stand by. We're going to hear some music from Christian in just a moment. And while we wait for the video, just great to hear again that Christian's from New Haven. Here he is.
So I want to present to you a song from a recent performance at the famous Keystone Corner in Baltimore. We just recently played there a few weeks ago. And this features two incredible musicians, Yasushi Nakamura on the bass and my brother, Ryan Sands, on drums. This is not an original composition, but it's something that I resonate with a lot. This is a song by the power group Blind Faith, and it's called Can't Find My Way Home.
And here comes his music. Well, that was great. And thank you to Christian Sands, really incredible artist. And again, from right here in New Haven. And every morning we're starting with art because art is such an integral part of New Haven and our region and what makes this place great. So look back in tomorrow morning at 8:50 a.m. and we will start with art again. And now we're ready to get going with the rest of our speakers for the day. We have a great lineup, as I mentioned, our Women's Power panel, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion panel, and then also how to help your small business on the strategic planning side. But before we get started, I want to start with Comcast Business because they are our presenting sponsor for the Big Connect. And we're joined this morning by Paul Savas, Vice President for the Western New England region. And Paul's going to help us get started. And also, we have our keynote speaker coming up in a moment. Paul, good to see you again this morning.
Garrett, great to see you as well. And once again, we're thrilled to be part of the Greater New Haven Chamber's Big Connect. Such a wonderful event. And I know there's a ton of excellent value extracted on the first day. We see ourselves as a huge innovator, of course, in the business technology space, from groundbreaking, internet speeds, symmetrical speeds for small businesses, giving maximum upload and download bandwidth speeds, but also through our entire suite of products, whether it be surveillance, Wi-Fi, Security Edge, which is a fantastic security product for small businesses, and Connection Pro, which is a 4G LTE backup. That comes all on the hands of our great technologists and innovators that we have around the country, in Philadelphia at our technology center, and out on the West Coast as well. So we're really thrilled to be able to offer such fantastic solutions for all of our customers. And thank you yesterday for the shameless plug as to how we provide the services for you there at the Chamber. We're really thrilled to be the presenting sponsor, not only of the event, but of this morning's speaker, just for the great things that Toby Corey has been involved with in the world of innovation. So I'm really excited to see what his presentation is all about. And thanks again for the opportunity to serve the Chamber, Garrett.
Great, thanks, Paul. We appreciate it. And as you said, thank you for also sponsoring Toby here. It's so in line with what we think of when we think of Comcast Business and high technology. Now I'm going to turn things over to Dean Ellen Durnan. She's with Southern Connecticut State University, and she is the Dean of the School of Business. Good morning, Dean Durnan, and please help us introduce Toby this morning.
Good morning, Garrett. And first, let me say what a great job I think you and your team are doing with the Big Connect in this virtual format. I don't feel as if I'm missing anything, and I actually feel like I'm experiencing so many other new things. So shout out to everybody at the Chamber. So this morning, it's my pleasure to introduce Toby Corey, a wildly successful alumnus of Southern School of Business. Toby Corey is the former president of Tesla, former president of Global Field Operations, and former chief revenue officer at Solar City, which merged into Tesla a few years ago. He successfully managed 3 $1 billion businesses, 2 successful IPOs, raised over $300 million in private and public financing, and managed a 7,000 plus employee organization operating globally. Toby currently sits on a number of corporate and advisory boards, and he has lectured at Stanford University for over 10 years. Toby believes deeply in customer-centric big idea thinking and is currently focused on transforming college entrepreneurship. He co-founded Get Virtual, a nonprofit that matches up college students with small businesses interested in developing their website and social media presence. This has become particularly relevant during the pandemic, where it is imperative for organizations to develop ways to pivot from being just a brick and mortars institution and providing new ways of engaging their customers in new experiences. Southern is proud to partner with Toby and Get Virtual as their East Coast anchor. And we are developing a program in January where we will deliver Get Virtual. Please reach out to us if you want to know more about it. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the keynote speaker this morning, Toby Corey.
Thank you so much, Ellen. I want to start out by thanking Ellen and Southern Connecticut State University. I want to thank the greater Garrett and the Chamber, and I want to thank Paul at Comcast. And I want to welcome all the participants on today's call. It feels very nostalgic to be on this call, even though I moved out to California in 1988. So let me tee up my presentation here, and we'll get things kicked off. Let's see here. So my talk today is really focused on the lost art of creativity. And I have really just two goals for today's talk this morning. Number one is to get you to think about yourself and the world differently. So I'm going to introduce some new concepts that I think apply both to potentially some valuable information about how to navigate through the pandemic and how to set yourself up to thrive in what a new world looks like in the 21st century. And I'm also going to get fairly tactical. Ellen teed up Get Virtual. It's an exciting new entrepreneurship program. So I'm going to go over that and share the nuts and bolts with you. Before I get started in today's presentation, I want to share a great story with everyone on today's Zoom call. It was not that long ago that I recall being a senior in high school. And initially, I wanted to go to school in Boston. Thought it was a great town. And for whatever reason, as I started looking at colleges, my parents sat down with me and said, "Hey, look, Toby, unfortunately, you've got two younger brothers and, money's kind of tight. So why don't you go to a state school for 2 years and then you can transfer over to Boston." And as I started looking at opportunities, fate must have played an important role. I looked at the course catalog and got excited about Southern Connecticut State University for a number of reasons. I noticed that they had a computer science program, and I knew nothing about that at the time in 1979, and applied, got in. I also wrestled in high school. They had a wrestling program back then, and was an economics major in the business school. And it was my junior year where I took a Fortran programming course with Professor Workman. That just completely changed my life and changed the trajectory of who I would become and where I would be headed. At the time, I was so excited with technology. I had no idea where it was going to go and how it was going to impact my life. But it turned out that the universe was talking to me in a really special way. And that really set me off on an incredible trajectory and opportunity. So let me start out with a really interesting quote by a famous Chinese philosopher, Lao Tzu. And if you do not change direction, you may end up where you're headed. And I think I would challenge everyone on today's call to think about yourself and your life and your business. Are you just going through the motions? Or are you thinking strategically about where to take your business, how to accomplish your goals and your objectives, how to create the best version of yourself? And we find ourselves living in very interesting time. I would contend that we live in probably the most noisiest and distracted era of all of humanity. And just start thinking about your day. How much of it is consumed by noise, pure noise? Our politics have become heightened and divided, and it's incredibly disturbing time. How much time are you spending funneling through Facebook or Twitter or needlessly, mindlessly activities that are consuming your most precious resource, which is your time? So as I began today's presentation, I really want everyone to sort of I want to introduce some new thinking, some new concepts, and that's my only goal here today. So a little bit more detail on my background. Ellen did such a great job of teeing that up, but I've had the opportunity in the mid-90s to create my own company. It was, at the time, we built the world's largest web development company when the internet was just invented. Built that to 5,000 employees operating in 17 countries around the world. We're the largest web developer working for half the Fortune 500 companies, the likes of Apple Computer and Ford Motor Company and American Express and eBay and others. And it was an amazing time, and got to retire really early in life. And what I found was that I'm a restless soul, and quickly became bored with my life, and wanted to figure out ways to really give back. And this is going to tee up some kind of deeper philosophical thinking as I get through the presentation. As Ellen said, I had the opportunity to go through my second IPO at Solar City in 2012, and orchestrated the merger with Tesla, where I headed up the energy group there. I'm going on my 11th year teaching 2 entrepreneurship courses at Stanford, entrepreneur thought leadership and the spirit of entrepreneurship. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about this concept of Zentrepreneur life as we get through today's talk. And I think to tee things up in the right light, I've been really struggling with, why we're here, where we're going, what is our purpose in life, some really deep philosophical questions. And that's quite funny because there are 2 subjects that I absolutely hated in school. I hated science, particularly physics and chemistry, and I hated philosophy. They just made no sense to me. And I've reoriented myself around looking at these new areas and really been expanding myself. But I think at a fundamental level, the core question for me is I've sort of looked at my life and looked at the world and started doing some research in what humanity looks like today. I've come to this fundamental point of view that I believe as being this, the most, as far as I know, and far as we know, the most powerful, most advanced species on this planet. And with that comes, I think, a deep sense of responsibility and a deep sense of purpose. And the question I think we should all ask ourselves is, are we leaving behind more opportunities? Or are we leaving behind more problems for future generations? And unfortunately, I've come to the conclusion that current course and speed, we're leaving behind more problems. And I think as I look at humanity, and I think the way the world's set up today is that these structures and institutions and paradigms are really set up to benefit very few people. And I think with the shape of politics and being incredibly divided, being it bought and paid for, I'm a big believer in free markets, but I think our economy can work for more people, can work for all people. I think looking at some of the racial issues that we're faced with right now, criminal justice reform, the list just goes on and on. So on one hand, you might say, wow, it's a pretty depressing world out there. However, I've spent the last decade working and teaching Generation Z and being an entrepreneur myself and connecting with other entrepreneurs, both with small, medium, and large businesses. It gives me great hope that this mindset and this type of thinking are poised to tackle some of our most vexing challenges. And I think setting up a new structure where more people can benefit from the world. So let's dig into that a little bit. So as I said, I think we're really at a really unique moment in time. We're at a crossroads. Where are we going to continue down the path of creating more problems for future generations to come? Or is there an opportunity to see the world differently? And I think that really all starts with pure mindset. And, being a product of Southern Connecticut State University, and I, received so much value in my time in New Haven, Connecticut. I live here now in Santa Cruz, California. And the 2 areas remind me they're very similar in having a kind of a nonconformist attitude, thinking differently, and not following the status quo. And I think that we have that opportunity as we're poised to look at the 21st century unfolding. We're faced with many, many challenges. The pandemic being front and center, it's impacted many businesses, especially disproportionately small businesses. We're obviously not through the woods yet. There's hope that a vaccine can be developed in short order, and we can work our way through that. But despite some of the challenges and extreme pressure and anxiety that I think probably most people on this call are going, where there's challenges presents also great opportunities. So I'm going to lay some of that groundwork out for everyone on today's call today. So this next slide, I think, tees up a way of looking at the world in that, and I would challenge everyone on this call in thinking through how much of your day is different. Do you find yourself doing the same things day in and day out, the same pattern, same activities? meeting with the same people. And I think that's really been the root of where we are today, and also teeing up the opportunity in that society has got very powerful gravitational forces that really strive for conformity. And unfortunately, this has really benefited very few institutions and paradigms. And we all sort of fall into this time, and we lose what I think is our greatest special skill, which we're born with this infinite ability to create. As I thought about how to challenge this, one of, I think, the most powerful ways to tackle this situation is really through entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship is just a code word for problem solving. It's a code word for innovation. It's a code word for disruption. And I think that as I've sort of thought about some of these larger scale issues and looked at the most valuable resource that we all have, and that's our time, right? If you get in a car accident, you can take your car to the repair shop and get that fixed. If you break your mobile phone, you can take that in and upgrade the model and get a newer one. Or if you rip your jeans, you can get them fixed, or maybe having ripped jeans is really cool. But time you never get back. It's finite. There's a beginning and a middle and end to this human existence that we're all living right now. And we spend a third of that sleeping and a third of that working. And that leaves only a small time. On average, we live about 78 years. And where is that other third of your time spent? And think about that for a second. How much time are you spending exploring your boundaries, expanding, thinking about creating a better version of yourself? What kind of contributions do you want to make to society? And, you know, I grew up in the 80s, and that was sort of the heyday for, you know, kind of the Wolf of Wall Street. You know, growing up as an East Coast boy, the world at that time in the 80s, when I was beginning my career, was really all about looking at these executives at the corporations that I worked with and wanting a corner office and wanting to drive the Mercedes-Benz or the BMW into the executive parking lot, and looking at their homes in Avon and other affluent areas, and how many homes can you acquire and how many material things can you acquire in life. And I've come to learn over time that that really is not that important in life. Certainly having a good standard of living is really critical. But at the same time, the material things that you acquire in your life, you don't take them with you. Whatever happens beyond this life existence, the only thing that stays with you is your reputation. What did you represent? What kind of lives did you impact? How did you impact the world? What contributions did you make to society? And that's the kind of challenge and thinking that I really want to explore and discuss with everyone on today's call. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, we are born with this infinite, incredible superpower. We're all born with infinite creativity. And over time, like anything else, if you don't use some of the talents and skills that you have, they atrophy over time, right? And for those of you that are either athletes or former artists or musicians, if you stop practicing and stop developing your craft or your trade, over time, your ability diminishes over time. And the same thing really happens with this infinite ability to create. Over time, we end up losing that incredible skill. And there's actually some science that I'm going to review with you that shows this off in spades. And I think another way to sort of illustrate this point, I've got a 2.5-year-old grandson. He's amazing. And every time I sit down with him and, believe it or not, have a conversation with a 2.5-year-old, I look into his eyes and all I see is wonderment. I see infinite possibilities. The questions that he asks me are so unbelievable and so right, with just an unbelievable way to think about the world. And over time, as we begin to conform, we lose all this superpower and all this great creativity that we are born with. We lose this all over time. So let's talk a little bit about this concept of neuroplasticity, which is really at the root of creativity. And what we know, there's very little we know about the human brain. We have no idea where consciousness exists. We have no idea where thought exists right now. But we do know that this concept of neuroplasticity makes up really the size and plasticity of all of our neural networks. And I had the opportunity while teaching at Stanford to bring in a Dr. Eagleman, a world famous neuroscientist. And he was talking to our class, and we were talking about creativity. And he cited this survey that was done some time ago where they did a functional MRI scan of 2-year-olds to really measure their neuroplasticity, which really comprised of how expansive is your neural network, which is really looking at the number of synapses and the number of neurons and how active those are in your brain through electrochemical signals and the size of that network. And then they re-imaged the same study group 25 years later, so at 27 years old, 25% of that neuroplasticity had eroded in 25 years' time in 100% of the study's participants. And then they re-imaged them again in another 25 years. So these individuals there at 62 years old, and another 25% of that neuroplasticity had eroded over time because you're not using it. You fall into a very similar pattern of doing the same thing day in and day out. And all this magic and this power that you're born with, you lose that and largely become a cog in a society that allows you to go through life with very little creativity. And creativity is absolutely paramount to success in business. I had the opportunity to work with perhaps one of the greatest entrepreneurs of my time, and Elon Musk, and looking about how he thinks about the world, how he draws on this incredible creative power. And it's quite different from your normal everyday person. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So as I said, what ends up happening with all things in life, you end up losing that power and that capability if you don't lose that. So if your world becomes very, very narrow and you end up doing the same thing day in and day out, what ends up happening, think about like a groove. And as that groove gets deeper and deeper, as you end up doing the same things day in and day out, then those grooves become really harder and harder and much more ingrained and become the form of your personality, become the form of your thinking. And there's very little room for creativity. And creativity is best really defined in thinking about sheer number of data points. So if you have very little data points in your life, then you're really constraining your creative capability versus thinking about the world differently and how to really expand from a creative standpoint is really, really vital. And that's what really separates great companies and thriving businesses from those that become suspect to too much competition or become imperiled by some of the activities like the pandemic that are really outside of their control. And that's that opportunity, despite some of the disadvantages that small business have around not being able to raise the kind of money that maybe an exciting new venture out of Silicon Valley could raise. But you've got really every tool and every opportunity in front of you to transform your business, to create a more compelling customer experience, to think about your business in a very, very different way. And who would have thought a guy like Elon Musk could completely transform the transportation industry, the auto industry, the semi-truck industry, could go on to transform energy. These are very entrenched businesses, and he's transforming them in fundamental ways with a lot of social value behind those. And that really starts and ends with this concept of creativity and creative thinking. Another famous quote that I picked up a while back was Jeff Bezos when he talks about creative brainstorming meetings, and he uses this quote of keep your childlike sense of wonder. And really what that means is he literally orients himself around thinking more in his younger version of himself, where there are no boundaries. You haven't been indoctrinated into a way of thinking. And this unbounded creativity really exists so that there really, there's no boundaries. It's not thinking about, if you're thinking about the transportation industry, would it be about building a better car, right? That's not how Elon thought about transforming the transportation industry. It was really all about transforming the driving experience. And back in the day when Henry Ford started Ford Motor Company, he said if he wanted to improve transportation, he would have figured out a way to build or genetically engineer better horses. So it was really all about really innovative thinking, out of the box thinking. And who would have thought that he would have been able to shake up the auto industry like he's done, and also the energy industry, which is going through another massive disruption and paradigm shift. So we're going to really spend some time really talking about how do you do that? What does that really mean? Give me some sort of practical advice on that concept, Toby. So before I do that, I want to add some additional science into your thinking today of really where this creativity comes from and why we lose it over time. So largely there are 5 different types of brainwave activity. So at the core, we all go through and have what are called delta brainwaves. And this really happens during really, really deep sleep when we're not dreaming. We have a time to really shut down our bodies. rejuvenate. Getting enough sleep is a critical aspect of leading a healthy lifestyle. And part of being able to generate these delta waves provide enormous benefits that science is just really learning about the benefits of that. But we all go through these delta brainwaves during deep fake. The next sort of brainwave, and you can see the shape of those brainwaves. And the next phase is really theta brainwaves, which is really happens during kind of drowsy. We're beginning to drift down into sleep, REM sleep, and things are beginning to really slow down into that state. Again, very therapeutic and very healthy. The brainwave activity that most of us spend during our waking hours is called a beta brainwave. And this is where we're really busy. We're very engaged in activities and conversation. And we all go through this for the majority of our time. The downside of this is it's hard to focus. It's hard to get into a deep line of thought during brainwave activity because most of us in today's day and age are really thinking that we could multitask. Ask yourself how many times you're on a phone call or you're doing email or you're checking your social media and all these activities and different windows that you have open on your laptop. That's a good classic example of beta waves. Or you're taking the kids to school or a soccer practice, you're thinking about grocery shopping, and most of us spend a lot of time during this beta wave activity. And as a matter of fact, I bet you'd be surprised to know, I'll quote another science study, that on average, how many people in the United States really have the brain capacity to multitask, actually multitask, do several things at one time? And I'll give you the answer to that question. It's actually 2.5% actually have time to multitask. So that means that 97.5% really are faking it. You don't have that capacity. And when you're in this beta phase, it's impossible to think creatively. And a lot of life just goes into this sort of run-of-the-mill, same activities, and we find ourselves mainly in this beta phase. So thinking about how do we generate and get out of that phase. So there's two other important brainwave activities that are critical to creative thinking, that are critical to expanding thought, that are critical to thinking about how to run your business to be more innovative, be more creative. And those are really two other phases. One is called an alpha. And this is a very relaxed deepening into activities that many of you probably can associate with. Meditation is a really good example of that. Perhaps a walk in nature, a walk on the beach, a walk on the lake, spending time by yourself, perhaps reading poetry. And many of us are beginning to understand there's real health benefits to that in terms of what's called your somatic intelligence. And you've got all of this intelligence that is happening in your body and don't even know it's happening. You're not telling yourself to breathe. You're not telling your heart to pump blood through your system. You're not telling your body how to generate enzymes or other hormones or how to digest food. All that's happening magically. And when you can orient yourself around a much slower brainwave activity, all that works better. We're just learning the therapeutic health benefits of that. And then there's another very special brainwave activity where a lot of creativity exists. These are called gamma waves. And despite interesting systematic brainwave activity, this is really the heart of creativity. And in Hinduism, there's this term is called samadhi, where you get yourself into a very deep trance where although you look relaxed, your brain activity is operating at its peak performance. That neuroplasticity enters into its highest state and reconnecting and thinking about the world differently. And as a matter of fact, there's some interesting studies going around now about the health benefits of psychedelic drugs, magic mushrooms, LSD and other, and the brainwave activity that can generate. They're showing really incredible health benefits around folks that are suffering from depression, post-traumatic stress disorder. But this is really sort of at the core of it, where all of us spend this time in this beta phase where there's zero creativity. You're literally going through the motions of life and throwing away this incredible superpower that you have. So let's explore this in a little bit more detail. So I myself have sort of worked through it. Again, this is not designed to tell you should do A, B, or C. It's really all about hopefully introducing some different ways to think about, as I said at the top of my presentation, think about yourself, who you are, where you're going, why you're here, and some of the more important things that are critical to your life about the business that you're running, the place that you might be working. And this framework is really what I've sort of been working with and how I sort of think about my life and really expanding and tapping into this infinite creativity and this infinite source of thinking that we all have and we're all born with. So across that x-axis down there is this concept called consciousness. And I could literally do a 2-hour lecture just on consciousness alone. So I'll try and kind of hit the high points to this. Consciousness is a phenomenon known as really when you're able to connect with something much deeper than your sort of senses and your physical self. We have this concept called an ego that preoccupies most of our life, that it gets very animated. And we've seen that happen and play out through this election cycle, where the noise level and the ego is like, I got to get my point in. All of the worrying about the past and things that you may have done and regrets that you're carrying, thinking about the future and all the problems that might come up, many of these things that are very much outside of your control. That's the ego's sense of really wanting to control things. And then when you're staying in that sort of beta wave construct, consciousness is an entirely different concept. It's connecting something that's much more mysterious. That's really where the true self exists. That essence or soul or whatever you want to call that doesn't live in space-time. It doesn't age. And when you have that opportunity to connect with this, the world looks very, very different. You find concepts of love, you find concepts of compassion, you find concepts of humanity that exists there. You find concepts of boundless thinking, you find concepts of oneness, of connecting and seeing how we really are all connected, connected to the universe, connected to all the natural beauty and nature of planet Earth. And there are many techniques and ways to connect with this. And that allows us to get into both this alpha in this gamma thinking, meditation, yoga, art, writing poetry. Those are all things that I practice on a very, very regular basis and look for ways to, how do I explore that and expand across this consciousness spectrum? So that occupies a fair amount of my thinking and the way that I connect with myself, the way that I connect with how I think about the world, the types of things that I want to accomplish in my life. But that concept is very, very powerful. It's very, very mysterious. And as I said, there could be so much more, a whole different presentation I could talk about that. I mentioned at the top of the show that I also really hated science in particular physics. And I've been reorienting myself around this concept called quantum mechanics. And this is an area where science happens at the subatomic level, and where there's a concept called superposition, where particles can actually be in two different states at the same time. Schrodinger's experiment, for example. These also particles can fluctuate between being a particle, matter, and being a wave, energy. There's also concepts of what are called entanglement, where a particle could be impacted and then impact a particle in an entirely different location with no idea how those two particles are impacted. Concepts of string theory, of multiple universes, and concepts of unified field theory, which surmises about where consciousness really, really exists. So much more exotic field. As I said, I could go on and on about that, but I wanted to introduce kind of the basic side of the importance of thinking about consciousness for yourself, because it really is the root of creativity. It really is the root of looking at how these major challenges that you're all facing can be converted into massive opportunities. The next spectrum is really along that, let's see here, the y-axis, which is wisdom, and how we can really expand. And I look at sort of two areas where I expand from the standpoint of how I gather information. And that's one in where I read, where I choose to focus my time. Remember I said time is very finite. Wisdom's an area of like, who am I meeting? I'm always looking to expand. I want to connect with people that are thinking about the world differently, that can introduce new concepts and new thinking to me. So instead of staying in the same swim lane, that's a lot what social media does. Matter of fact, if you do an experiment on LinkedIn and you start requesting people, and if enough of those people that you requested as a LinkedIn friend say they don't know you, you're actually going to get a warning message from LinkedIn saying, only connect with people that you know. That's ludicrous. Why would you want to keep connecting with people that you know, that keep thinking the same way that you do? That's not how you expand. That's not how you create the best version of yourself. So it's really all about, I look at the types of things that I'm reading, the kind of people that I'm connecting with, and how do I really expand my thinking along that? Because remember, creativity is all about introducing new data points into your neuroplasticity. And then of course, the Z-axis is really action. That's like, where am I applying my time? Where am I focusing that time and energy on using this creative power that I have? So that's just a kind of what I call a framework for creativity, a model that I sort of use in looking at how I tap into this infinite sort of creative superpowers that we're all born with. So with that, I look at my life through two sets of lenses. There's a tactical set, which is really, we're living in these times where most of society is set up to benefit very few. At the same time, we have to do our part. We have to be activists. We have to vote. We have to focus on what's right. And then there's that strategic side, which is kind of a game of chess. And if you haven't seen The Queen's Gambit, I'm going to make a plug for that. Go out and check that movie out. But it's really all about, how do we change the playing field? And that's where I really believe entrepreneurship and creativity is the heart of tackling our most vexing problems and adding more firepower and creativity into a new generation of leaders and thought leadership. So there's a concept that I call, which is Zentrepreneur Life, but there's, I have a short video that I want to play that will introduce these concepts to everyone on today's call.
Hey, Toby, I don't know if there's audio on this. We're not hearing the audio.
Oh, you're not hearing the audio?
Yeah, maybe if the on the share screen, if
Sorry about that.
Stop share and reshare the.
Did the video not play?
The video played, just the audio didn't come through.
Got it.
And I know there's that checkbox that you can click share computer audio when you go to share.
So if let's see here.
Maybe stop share and then reshare and click that.
Okay, let me try that again. Sorry about that, folks. Let's share my screen. Let's see. Audio coming?
Nope.
Okay, folks. Well, I'll have to resend that cool video. Link, I'll throw that in the chat. Sorry you missed that. Okay, so anyway, unfortunately you didn't hear that, but I'll share the video link in the chat session. But there's really three critical takeaways that I'd like everyone to walk with. And many of my students always ask for advice, and I get to speak to a lot of at colleges and universities. And there's really three of the most important pieces of advice that I'll share with this group here. So the first and most important is to be intellectually curious. Never stop learning. Never believe that you can stop learning. So as I laid out that, creativity for good framework to you, this is the core tenet of that. What are you reading? Who are you connecting with? Are you expanding your boundaries? Or are you literally staying in the same swim lane day in and day out? So be intellectually curious, and that can manifest itself in so many different ways and so many different levels. The second one is what I call be a creator. And this is what really separates people that are successful from those that aren't. As a matter of fact, being successful in life has nothing to do with your IQ or your EQ or who you are. It's really all about being a doer rather than a talker. So if you're talking about, I want to do this or I want to do that, or actually, are you a creator? Are you producing? Are you experimenting? Are you failing? Because failing is just a code word for learning. So be a creator, put yourself out there. And lastly, I think we have an amazing opportunity. I think that both these entrepreneurs on the call, students in Generation Z, we are living in unprecedented times where I think altruism has an opportunity to really rise, where instead of focusing on yourself or a few people, we have the opportunity to raise the tide, right? And all tides raise all boats. And my final thought on this whole sort of philosophical side of my presentation today is that, I find myself as well dealing with lots of issues, many of those that are thrown into my lap and don't have any control over that. I can either choose to fight those, and it's similar to if you've ever swam in a lake or a river in the ocean and you're in a very strong current, swimming against that current, you're going to get tired very quickly and you're not really going to get to where you want to get to. And there's always a flow. If you're creative enough and think about that, there's always a time to find that flow in life. And I would encourage all of you to find that flow. So with that, I've got a few more minutes before I want to open it up for Q&A. I want to introduce an exciting new program for everyone on this call, whether you're running a business or an entrepreneur, or you're a student, or you want to be a volunteer, someone that may want to think about changing careers and getting into yourself set up for potentially a great career in the gig economy. There's a new concept called Get Virtual, the Spirit of Entrepreneurship. And Ellen did a good job of starting to tee this off at the beginning of today's call, but what is that? So it's a college course that we developed where students learn three key areas of proficiency: how to build websites, how to build e-commerce sites, and how to provide digital marketing. And what we found is that college students are very digitally savvy. They've grown up online, they've grown up with mobile computing, they've grown up as social media experts. And there's been the rise of a new technology platform called no-code tools. These are software tools that don't require an engineer to write code. They're very, very powerful. So in the area of web development, technologies like Wix and Squarespace. In the area of e-commerce, technologies like Shopify. So what we do is we teach students a methodology, customer discovery, proposal development, project management. We teach them how to become proficient in either one or several of these key service areas. And then we pair students with small business owners to help either create or improve their online customer experiences and help them acquire customers online. So the students, what do they get out of it? They get college credit and really valuable experience, because what employers look for? They look for special students. They look for extraordinary students. They look for students that actually have some experience that they can bring to bear. And if you're just taking regular college courses, when you graduate, you're in a very, very competitive field. So this program is really designed to give them an extraordinary learning experience, give them real practical hands-on experience. And what do businesses get? They get basically free labor, or they get volunteer interns that will help develop these systems for them. It's designed really to teach these businesses how to fish. So once we've got these state-of-the-art platforms set up, they're very easy to update. So if you want to change your website, add new content, add new products to your e-commerce site, it's very, very easy to do. So students complete, as part of the course, 7 steps. There's a curriculum around skills assessment, customer discovery. They learn some internal tools that we use to communicate amongst one another. This program's all virtual. The students work together virtually. The students interact with small businesses virtually to create these systems. And then they become proficient in these client tools. They complete their first set of projects. They earn a certification. The program comes in 2 flavors. Students can individually come through in a self-paced study program where we work with them to get college credit through a field study program. Or in the case of a college like Southern Connecticut State that's adopted the program with an instructor in class, they'll be beginning to roll this program out in January. So the students receive their certification after their first project. So what's our mission? Every great endeavor needs a really great mission. So our mission is to inspire and cultivate an altruistic entrepreneurial spirit, prepare students for meaningful and successful careers, and while at the same time giving back to these small businesses that make up a critical fabric to our communities. Small businesses employ over 2/3 of all US workers. Small businesses drive 44% of our GDP, and 70% of our GDP is all consumer spending. And I think more importantly, these small businesses make up the core fabric of our community. You employ lots of people. Many of you are very philanthropic. You give back. You sponsor ballet clubs and softball teams and other really important initiatives. So ensuring that small businesses continue to thrive in the 21st century is critical to the fabric of our social makeup. So how does the program work? So as I said, students or colleges adopt the program. The program is free for colleges. The program is free for students, and the program is free for small business owners. We've developed a curriculum that is all accessible, all online. So the instructor downloads the entire program, or a student can self-pace through. Once the students have completed that, we pair them up with small businesses in the form of 3 flavors, either small nonprofits, small businesses, or what we call early stage startups that are impact startups. And then once the students finish their initial work, they receive certification. And then we're connecting all of these students together in a global community where they can share information and share knowledge. And actually, many of these students end up working on these small business projects that transcend their college ID. So students from different colleges are working together on these initiatives for small businesses. Let's see here. So student benefits are they get college credit certification. That's why they do this work. More importantly, they get an internship that they can put on their LinkedIn or on their resume. They acquire really important workplace skills. They join a movement, and they get to give back to the small businesses that make up a big part of the areas where they go to college. The business benefits are they get well-trained students. This program's not designed for freshmen and sophomores. It's for upperclassmen. At Southern, we're mainly focusing on seniors and graduate students that have had a certain set of prerequisites, honor students, the students, they're all online, mobile computing, and very social media savvy. We use best of breed commercial grade software solutions that are really easy to maintain when we turn that system that's already been built over to the business. And those students are giving back to these small businesses. And so with that, it was founded by myself. This is a passion of mine of thinking through strategically, how do we really get the world on a more sustainable, more healthier track? My co-founder, Nada Milkovich, who teaches both at UC Santa Cruz and at Stanford. I want to thank this University of Santa Cruz, which had the courage to be the first inaugural college to launch this program. We had over 100 businesses sign up here in Santa Cruz. We have expanded into Monterey Bay at CSUMB. We've expanded into San Jose at Santa Clara University and at San Jose State. And we're really excited to be launching in New Haven at Southern Connecticut State University, our anchor school. It's a really special college for me, having graduated from there, and hopefully have the impact on the students there and the community in New Haven. Just a really, really great, exciting opportunity. So for those that want to sign up small businesses, it's really easy. You go to getvirtual.org, and then there's a tab at the top, sign up, or you can do /sign up. And you're ready to go. And we won't be launching till January timeframe, but get in the queue, get yourself signed up if you're interested in learning if the program might work for you. And with that, I want to thank everyone for their time And hopefully we've got some time for some Q&A if there are any.
Thanks, Toby. That was great. Great way to just think about life and change your paradigm and how you perceive things. And we all are really excited about the Get Virtual program that's going to be coming out at Southern, and we're going to, at the Chamber, we're going to promote that as well. I'm going to read a few questions we have here in the chat. Someone asked, with so many virtual events out there, what can you do to stand out?
That's a really great question. I think really at the start of that is going through some of the principles that I've outlined and ask yourself, are you doing the same things that everyone else is doing? So most businesses, you know, in terms of customer acquisition, there's three primary ways to do that. It's either performance marketing, where you're buying Google AdWords or Facebook display ads or what have you. And I would ask you, how inviting are those? Is your message? Is it intriguing? Is it interesting? Is it resonating with your target audience? Do you really understand who your target audience is? What makes them tick? The second opportunity, and this is really where I think the more explosive growth can come from, the one is really on content creation. So looking at, again, what kind of content are you creating? How exciting are your social media presences? And I would just coach everyone on focus more on quality than on quantity. Just to say I'm getting out a post and going through the motion, I'd rather you spend time on what's really connecting with your audience. And here's the best way to learn that. Are you experimenting? Are you trying new things, seeing what your click rates are, seeing what your conversion rates are? And I think last and most importantly, the most important opportunity is thinking about your customers as an extension of your sales force. And if you're creating a truly compelling experience that your customers love, guess what? Encouraging them to post a positive Yelp review or a positive Amazon review and really engaging with your audience members, because that's what most of us are looking for. Today, brands are very transparent. When I decide to work with a business, I go online, start looking at reviews. Those are all very easy, simple ways to really focusing on extending your sales force through your customers.
And another question here, what steps would you recommend for creating meaningful networking connections in this virtual climate?
Yeah, so I introduced this concept of the 21 Entrepreneur Principles. Unfortunately, I'm sorry the audio didn't come out, so hopefully I sent the link in the chat, if we'll get that out to the members. But there's this concept called open networks, where I'm always constantly looking at, as I'm reading articles and seeing who the author of that was, or reading a book or what have you, and really reaching out and expanding into those networks. But look, at the best way to network is thinking through, they have to work both ways. You've got to be able to think about, what can I contribute to this network connection? And how does that work in a mutually beneficial way? Because most of that really comes across where folks are asking. So, you know, I'm fairly open. I do have a large LinkedIn network because I worked at very large companies, over 14,000. But it's interesting to watch that, where I see people that, hey, try this or try that, versus getting to know me or reading about me. And when you put that investment, it's like any relationship, right? If you, a personal relationship, what makes that work, right? That you're both listening to one another, that each other's benefiting from that relationship. Business relationships work the same way. If you're just asking or taking and it's all in for you, you're not going to get very far with those relationships. So think through about either industry icons, folks that you think could help, and getting to know those people, reading about them, learning them, and thinking about ways, how can I help that person out? Those are the most meaningful, best ways to create, you know, really good open networks.
Toby, last question, and you touched upon this when you started talking about Get Virtual, and that's what Get Virtual does, is helps people through this. But a lot of people who are intrepid about kind of taking that next step, finding something new that they can add to their business. Until Get Virtual gets out there, what would you say to people about, you know, how do you take that first step forward in changing your business to be more digital?
Yeah, so here's the sort of exercise that I'd be going through. Number one is like, do you really understand who your customers are? That's the most important first critical step. Like, really understand who they are, both key demographic information. How old are they? Where do they live? What common elements does your market segment? Do you have multiple segments to who your customers are and who you're serving? And when you start to really understand who they are, and then understanding what they really want, it becomes really much more straightforward, easier exercise than shooting in the dark, trying this or trying that. So That's sort of the first step, is like, do I know who my customers are? Do I know what makes them tick? Do I know why they're buying my product or service? Do I know why some customers may not have bought my product or service? And constantly innovating and focusing on how to connect more deeply with your customers. And that really is, I just see so many businesses that sort of lose sight of that very simple, straightforward exercise. And then, as I said, the second critical principle is being a creator. And then what is it? Should you be looking at how to expand your value proposition, or maybe reduce your value proposition? You may be offering goods and services that your customers don't want, or that are a commodity, or they can get somewhere better, cheaper, or faster. So I think that examination is really what makes you different, what makes you unique, and how to continue to expand in that unique way that gives you competitive differentiation is, I think, the most important thinking exercise, intellectual exercise that most businesses would really go through. And what makes a local bookstore different than buying something on Amazon, right? So there are many ways, and most businesses have sort of lost sight of that. It's doing the same thing, and over time, things are always changing. The one thing you can count on is change. And the world is so connected right now, and taking advantage of that change wave instead of sitting back and letting change impact your business, using change as a weapon, using change as a strategic advantage. And that's the opportunity for small businesses.
Toby, thanks so much. We see the sun rising in your window behind you, so we know it was really early morning, and we appreciate you jumping on with us. Thanks to Southern Connecticut State University and School of Business and Comcast Business for presenting this. And Toby, I'm not sure if you have a few minutes. If you do, we'll just ask you to jump into our Zoom room so people could continue the conversation with you if you have a few minutes. If not,
yeah, I'd love to do that. Do we have 2 minutes? Because what I think I'd like to do is play that video. It's only 2 minutes long.
Oh yeah,
so maybe I could play that off of. Let's see. Let me see if I can play that off of a.
Here, I can probably play it. Let me
channel. Let's see here. Share. Yeah, if you could play that link, that would be fantastic, and then I could jump on the Zoom call. It'd be a great way to.
Okay, let me. I will share that right now. Let's see.
Home.
You hear that?
For decades, mankind has achieved wonders on this planet. We've terraformed the land, built cities in the desert, and islands out of sand. Yet at the same time, our forests are burning, glaciers melting, and lakes drying up. Our lives have been threatened by our very own creation. But we are the next generation. We can change our trajectory and course correct what's been done by past generations to create a better future. Centrepreneur Life is a philosophy to spark change. It offers a roadmap to tapping into your infinite creative power through the following 21 principles. Believe in something greater than yourself. Live in gratitude. Strive to make the world a better place. Believe in infinite possibilities. Be transparent. Be kind. Give more. Lead by example. Be bright. Share positivity. Have faith that you will succeed no matter the circumstances. Be present. Continually strive for personal growth. Spend time in nature. Listen. Live in pursuit of perfecting your craft.
Can Watson come back thing? I think that's Pat. He could be.
Have a dedication to defining your own path. Build open networks. Make your own opportunities. Fuel your mind, body, and spirit with healthy nutrients. Know the real prize is the journey. Don't take life too seriously. Laugh, sing, and dance more. Be willing to explore your edges.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Yesterday, we terraformed the land, built cities in the desert, and islands out of sand. Tomorrow, well, we have a better plan.
That was great. Toby, you still there with us?
I am.
Excellent. Well, thank you
thanks
again
so much.
so much.
I have
Great
time.
video.
I'll join the Zoom room with you guys. Thanks,
Great.
everybody.
So if anyone wants to join in with Toby, he's going to hop into the Zoom room for just a moment, and you can continue the conversation with him there. We again thank Toby Corey for being a part of the program today. We'll get to our next speaker in a moment. Just want to remind everyone again, the Zoom Lounge is open. You can follow Toby over there to continue the conversation. And remember to check out those passports so you can be entered for the Foxwoods Resort Casino prize. All right. Also want to just mention the way our Whova, which is the platform we're using, is set up, is that you can move to each speaker on the agenda. And while you're currently probably in the speaker session for Toby Corey, if you want to move on to the next speaker segment on the agenda, that's just going to allow you to have all of the features of the chat and to talk with the speakers and presenters that we'll have. You'll continue to see the live stream in the Toby Corey scheduled agenda item. Just a little technical thing though, if you want to continue on and move into the actual speaker agenda item for our next segment on diversity, equity, and inclusion, please feel free to do that. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. You can stay right where you are. You will continue to see our content that's coming up next, but you can also move on into the next segment.